All right, greetings from the Dark Continent. Conscious Caracal here, or Adams van Sail, here to shine a light on the goings on down south. And not so dark at the moment. It's still shining light outside. There's still some daylight. The stream a bit earlier, and also not on a Tuesday as usual. Busy, complicated business. Sorry to keep you waiting. No, this whole week with the documentaries release and all the everything attached to that, everything that needs to be done, all the federalism conference we had this morning as well. Everything's been keeping me very busy, so I'm fitting in the stream where I can, because I wanted to talk about the documentary that I made and that was released on YouTube today. The documentary is called Selfbestuur, staatsbestande oplossings vir die toekoms. In English, that would be self-governance, state-proof solutions for the future. And I wanted to do an episode on my channel talking about some of the content, also answering your questions, seeing as I think my audience specifically will find this documentary very interesting. It has English subtitles, so even though it is in Afrikaans, you will be able to follow along and get all that good content. Welcome everyone. If you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and I will answer as many as I can. But today's stream is just to take your questions and also to just discuss the documentary a little bit. I'm very excited to share it with you. So let's start off with just who features in the documentary, or let's start off with what it's about. So for a long time, the Solidariteit beweging, or solidarity movement, have wanted to have a source like a documentary or a film that communicates our plan for the future, the blueprint that we have for state-proof solutions in South Africa, to make it understandable for our members and also people that want to support us or just want to use our model to help your community as well. And I took up the challenge. Flipbase asked me to make this documentary, and well, he's been asking the movement, anyone within the movement itself, to make this documentary, and I took up the opportunity, and I said I'll do my best, and I'm very glad with how it came out. It was made by AfriForum TV, but yeah, I wrote it, did all the interviews, and also directed it and presented it. But yeah, I had an amazing team that made it possible, specifically at AfriForum TV. But I'll get to that in just a moment. So let's start off with who features in the documentary. A lot of them you will recognize. Firstly, Flipbase. Wait, let me just see. I have something here. Let's see. Here we go. So Flipbase, who is the chairperson of the Solidarity Movement, then Professor Dani Goosen, academic head at academia or university or private university, Kali Kriel, CEO of AfriForum, Robert Daigen, someone you recognize, researcher and analyst and commentator, Heinrich Weingart, the CEO or the executive chairperson of Cape Forum, Kaapse Forum, Dr. Ernst Roots. I'm translating all these positions in my head. Management head for strategy at AfriForum. Ernst actually is not yet used to having a doctor in front of his name. So when I showed him the credits, he's like, you take out the doctor, it doesn't look right. I'm like, well, then we're going to have to take out the doctor from all the other doctors that we talk to, and that's not going to work. So he does appear as Dr. Ernst Roots in the credits. Also, Helen Ziller, former Premier of the Western Cape, wanted to talk to her specifically about that experience. Martin van Staden, Deputy Deputy Head for Policy Research at the Institute for Race Relations. Russell Lamberti, Head Economist at Sakeliga. Joost Strydom, Executive Head or CEO of the Orania Beweging, Orania Movement, and Karel Boshoff, the head of the Vryheidsstichting or the Freedom Institute. Then also Christoph van Ack, honorary president of the Seitirole Vriendeskreis der Afrikaner, the Friends of the Afrikaner organization in South Tyrol. Carlo Vittori, member of the South Tyrolean Parliament. Mark Rogla, head of the Center of Autonomy Experience, URAC Research in Bootsen. Dr. Louis Durnwalder, former president of the autonomous province of Bootsen, South Tyrol, from 1989 to 2013. So yeah, those are just some of the people that feature. Well, no, those are the people that feature in the documentary. Like I said, I see a lot of people are joining in now. If you have any questions, let me know. And yes, the documentary has English subtitles, so you will be able to follow along. Let's see. I haven't been looking at the chat since we all started. Hello, everyone. Hello, Sean. He says, looking forward to the production. Well, it's there. You can go see it. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to go watch it after this. Be Smart is here. I see Sideline Opinions is here. Yeah, Hindo, it's earlier and also on a different date. But like I said, I'm trying to fit it in a very, very busy week. So I'm doing my best. I see Fen de Villiers. I'm probably one of the few people that can pronounce your surname, seeing as the South Africa is fraught with de Villiers here. He says, excellent stuff. Looking forward to giving it a watch. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, English subtitles, so everyone will be able to follow along. Link in the description. But thank you very much, Fen, for tuning in. Sideline Opinion says, times of change are always volatile and crammed with uncertainties. We are in times of major change happening in South Africa and the Western world. Well, tell me about it. Hindo is posting the link in the chat. Thank you very much. Okay. Stefan Sutherland has the first question of the night. He asks, does it, I'm assuming the documentary, or do you elsewhere talk about the role of religion and especially of organized churches? That's interesting because being an Afrikaner and part of an Afrikaner organization, religion is it's in Afrikaans it's vanselfsprekend. It's just there. It's just part of the model. It's not something you have to constantly talk about in regards to. You just kind of accept or assume that it's part of the model. We do reference the importance of our Christian values quite often, but yeah, we're not at that point where we have to mention it so often because people don't know the role that it plays. In the Afrikaner community, people still very much understand the role that it plays. So you won't see it so often mentioned specifically for that reason. But we are, if you ask us questions about it, we have long and detailed answers regarding, if, for example, people wanted to know the role of religion. I mean, you can see it in the Solidariteit movement where it started. There are two strains of the Solidariteit started as a labor union or trade union. And there are two strains of trade unions, the socialist trade unions and the Christian trade unions. And Solidariteit specifically is a Christian trade union. And that's an aspect of it that you will never be able to remove from its DNA. It's hardwired into the organization's DNA and AfriForums as well. Mark Meiberg is here. He says, hi all. And Roy van Sail, my van genoot. Hello, Roy, is also here. And I see Sideline Opinion says religion is part of culture. One religion can be shared by more than one culture. Yes, absolutely. All right. So now I've gone through the people that appear in it. Let's go through some of the sections of what it actually covers. So first, the documentary starts off with the distinction between two models of government, or rather two models of solving the problems of your time. The one is centralism, and the other was state centralism, and the other one is community federalism. And our documentary explains community federalism as an alternative to state centralization and state centralism, the government model that's been wreaking havoc and been failing in Southern Africa for over 100 years. It's time that we try something new, and it's time that we have fresh, creative ideas and innovative ideas surrounding problem solving. Because in the end, it is a question of the friends of freedom versus the enemies of freedom. And the friends of freedom, look at, for example, a place like Southern Africa, incredibly diverse part of the continent, a place known for being a community of communities. And within those circumstances, where if it relates to conflict mitigation, as it relates to economic activity, as it relates to freedom, as it relates to coexistence, all those things in a place like Southern Africa, the Friends of Freedom look at all those aspects and try to formulate models and solutions based on old and sometimes new as well ideas and values, but always on a solid ground of proven values from our past and from our ancestors, and trying to formulate solutions to all those different problems that arise from our circumstances. The enemies of freedom are the people that pretty much tell you that you are evil if you try any type of solution or champion any type of solution that is not dependent on the state or state intervention. The enemies of freedom basically say that the only choice that you are allowed to have is that you are allowed to choose your flavor of state dependence. That's pretty much their Overton window, and you can't stray from that. So our documentary specifically falls into the alternative model, specifically on how we are going to beat and replace eventually the centralist model with the new model of selfbestuur, selfdoen, do-it-yourself, community federalism. And the documentary sets out to explain exactly how we're going to do that. Driekus says, briljante samevatting van hoe die toekoms gaan wees. I've just watched Selfbestuur and it gives me a clear look at what the future could look like. Well, Driekus, baie dankie. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'm glad that it gave you some valuable insights. I mean, the documentary is chock full of everyone there much smarter than me. So they give you a lot of great insights. So thank you very much, Driekus, for your great feedback. Sideliner Opinion says, equality and socialist-driven government models require centralism and control, which requires sacrifices of individual freedoms. Stefan Sutherland says, thanks for answering. I was curious because I'm a deacon in a reformed denomination, similar to your Huguenot forefathers, and I think I have no idea what a diaconate is. Probably something to do with being a deacon. May I have to take on a larger role in the future. I think my English is failing me with that word. I think when I hear the Afrikaans word, I'll know exactly what it is. But yeah, Stefan, thank you very much for your question and also for your feedback there. Yes, you will, if you read our documents, you look at what the Solidariteit movement and AfriForum are doing, you'll see that the Christian bedrock is absolutely there, and you cannot remove it. It's like I said, hardwired into both organizations' DNA. But yeah, all right. So let's go through. Now I started with the different sections. So after explaining the whole model of centralism and community federalism, we go on to the next chapter of the documentary, which deals with how community federalism or federalism as a broad idea has been effectively implemented and can be effectively implemented. Firstly, on a provincial level. So here we talk about growing autonomy for example, provinces like the Western Cape, where provinces take control over specifically things like policing, roads, water, electricity, everywhere where the central government is failing. We talk about the possibility and the practicality of provinces taking over those responsibilities again. We also have a section, an international section, which is one of my favorites, seeing as we went to South Tyrol, the autonomous region or province in Italy. And I probably will do an episode specifically just on South Tyrol. But to give you the quick details, after the First World War, South Tyrol, the province of South Tyrol, was given to Italy as spoils of war because Italy fought on the side against the Germans on the side of the Allies. And but the province is vast majority, like 95% Austrian or German speaking. And now they're a minority. They went from being part of a majority German-speaking country to being a super minority within the centralized state of Italy. And under Mussolini in the 1920s, they went through a brutal process of Italianization, where the fascist government pretty much tried to Italianize them through very draconian policies. I mean, the outlawing of German schools and closing of German schools, changing of names, literal names. Where if you have a German name, you have to change it to an Italian name. Italian being the only viable or only accepted language in public spaces. Changing of street names, so you'll see the city that we visited, Bozen. The German name is Bozen, but the Italian name is Bolzano. So they changed city names and street names. Sounds familiar. I see a Colonel. Colonel. Colonel Chris Wyatt is here in the chat. He says, "Sei Tirol über alles." That's also a very interesting connection that I learned when I spoke to the Colonel on his channel, that he actually knows South Tyrol very well, spent a lot of time there, and has a very strong connection to the province. I didn't know. It's a small world. But thank you very much for tuning in, Chris. I'll just put you on the screen there. And thank you for attending the premiere of my documentary last night as well. I really appreciate it. It was excellent to have you there, American representative there, with Dean Chauncey as well. All right. So we do for this chapter. I mean, there's a lot of international examples of federalism, but we wanted to focus in on South Tyrol as an autonomous province and how they handle autonomy, how they gained autonomy, and what lessons they have for us, the Afrikaners, to learn. And they were very helpful, and they were very eager to help us, seeing as they have a friend organization, Friends of the Afrikaner, there, that's been established almost over a decade ago, and specifically aimed at fostering and increasing and strengthening the bonds between the South Tyrolean people and the Afrikaner people. And yeah, everyone there was very welcoming, very nice, and they helped us to create a very great chapter as part of my documentary to showcase their version of autonomy in South Tyrol and all the challenges they face, and their history, and also what Afrikaners can learn from that. But like I said, Italianization, what the Italian government tried to do to them in the 1920s, a lot of that sounds familiar to what's happening in South Africa, cultural suppression, where, I mean, now just last week, the story broke of students at Stellenbosch University, an originally Afrikaans university, now today in 2023, being afraid to speak Afrikaans on campus in public because of the bullying and the attacks and the targeting by the people that represent the university on campus. And this came out now, this massive scandal. Then you also see just an overall hostile attitude from the government and from many institutions towards Afrikaans in South Africa, and Afrikaners as well. That's why we need these types of solutions like community federalism and staatsbestand, state-proofing ourselves, because we are under attack from people that some people want to go as far as to want to destroy our culture and wish that we had a world without it. So that's what we're fighting. That's what we're proofing ourselves, becoming resilient and anti-fragile against those attacks. See Bernard's here as well. Nice to see you. Hindo says 25 likes. Thank you, Hindo. Very nice. Sideline Opinion says democracy and multiculturalism are as yet incompatible, and cries for more form of cultural or geographic federalism, tyranny of the majority over minorities, also immoral. You'll see in the documentary, there's actually a lot that touches on that in regards to different cultural communities, how they can interact, and how the model of community federalism actually facilitates and helps that, rather than the centralism model, which exacerbates tensions and frictions and actually worsens and destroys good, positive, healthy relations between different cultural communities. And this often happens through what Russell Lamberti and also Professor Dani Goosen explained in the documentary very well, the process of standardization. So what you have with a centralized government, where all power is centralized in the hands of the state, is that for it to run a country effectively, or how it tries to run a country effectively, I should rather say, is it tries to standardize everything. So if your country has 11 official languages, it's just going to standardize them all into one language. All the documents are going to be in one language. All the street signs are going to be in one language. All the government forms are going to be in one language. That language is going to be English, as the point that Russell Lamberti makes in the documentary, where he says the whole idea of South Africa having 11 official languages is a farce. It only has one official language, and that's English, not by the choosing of the people of South Africa, but rather by government forcing that down on the society through standardization. Another form of standardization is pretty much the obvious stuff. So you have one electricity network, one postal network, one road network. And when the central government fails in any of those departments or any of those areas, the entire country is without that service. So if the central government has a monopoly on the standardized electricity grid all across the country, as we have in South Africa, when the central government fails abysmally, as it has in South Africa, and can't fix the problem no matter how much time you give them, they've had 15 years now to try and fix rolling blackouts, and they still can't figure it out, then the entire country suffers because the central government has total control over that system. So yeah, I see a lot of people also coming in now. Petra Meiberg, hello. A lot of people getting in here now. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time here tonight and tuning in. All right. So that's just my quick summary of standardization. Russell Lamberti and Professor Dani Goosen explain it very well in the documentary. Then let's see here, the next level. 1 second. Here we go. All right. So after we visited South Tyrol, get their details and their perspective and some beautiful shots of their corner of the world, we traveled to Orania, another pioneering part of South Africa, my last episode was where I had an interview with US Strydom, the head of the Orania movement. And he told us everything about Orania, but he also features in the documentary. And we went to Orania to specifically showcase their model of selfbestuur, selfdoen, and community-federalism, where they're doing things themselves, taking responsibility. As Martin van Staden says in the documentary, South Africa's major problem is that communities don't want to take responsibility. They just outsource the responsibilities to the government, and then the government fails, and then you sit there without those basic services. But in Orania, they believe about taking responsibility, and that's why I'm very glad that we could have a very good chapter on Orania in the documentary as well. We also talked to Dr. Karel Boshoff in the documentary as well, on specifically on Orania. Then another section of the documentary, another chapter, is Chris Wyatt says, Paul, who watched it today? Well, you can tell us in the chat. Sideline Opinion says, I've watched it. Valerie says, me. African Idiot says, me. Cool. Rute Rustov says, thumbs up. So then we also go on a specific province level. So we go to the Western Cape and we speak to many people there about specifically growing autonomy for the Western Cape and communities in the Western Cape as it relates to electricity, policing, water, taking back those responsibilities from the national government and doing it yourself, because the central government's failing. And as Philip Bay said, our solutions are going to have to be bigger than the central government's failure, and we're going to have to develop and implement them faster than the state is collapsing. And I think we're doing that, and that's definitely the impression you'll get from the documentary as well. There's people with a plan. Boer maak 'n plan en ons boere het duidelike plan. All right. Cool. Next. So we look at Western Cape autonomy as well, specifically. Lastly, the last chapter of the documentary is anchor communities. So anchor communities is a Solidariteit movement's project and plan, where, so firstly, the big central problem for Afrikaners is not our small numbers. There's more than 2.7 million Afrikaners. We're larger than the populations of many countries like Namibia or Botswana or Macedonia or Uruguay. There's more Afrikaners in the populations of those countries. But our problem is our dispersal, or we're very dispersed all across the country. We're not concentrated. And that's why everywhere we are left to the ANC failure, and the ANC failure affects us very heavily. But the Anchor Communities project is to specifically encourage the concentration of Afrikaners, where you start concentrating in specific areas. And that will happen naturally, even without the Anchor Communities project. As smaller rural towns collapse, those Afrikaners will move to bigger centra and towns, cities and larger towns in their regional area, and will naturally start concentrating. And within those specific areas that we've identified, where Afrikaners are have a very large numbers, the Anchor Communities project will focus on building cultural infrastructure, schools, universities. They're establishing neighborhood watches there, service delivery there, to make sure that those communities are able to have a sustainable future here, and that more people are attracted there, to encourage more concentration of Afrikaners. Because as Kali Kriel and Flabay say on the documentary, demographics determine your community's destiny, and demographics explain a lot of South Africa's politics. Flabay has said, for example, that if you don't understand, or if you're not honest and frank about the demographic realities of South Africa, then you won't be able to create solutions for your communities. Askari West asks, hi Adams, enjoyed your documentary. Is Polokwane, Pietersburg considered an anchor town? Sure. I wish I had the list here in front of me. You're going to have to check. If you just Google AfriForum anchor towns or AfriForum anchor communities, you will be able to find a list, I'm sure. All right. So, and that's where we end, is anchor communities. A good example is, for example, Pretoria as an anchor community. So we focus in on Pretoria because there lives over 500,000 Afrikaners in Pretoria. It's by far the largest concentration of Afrikaners. It's an Afrikaner city. And within Pretoria, we've identified at least 14 anchor communities that can be established. And those 14 anchor communities, like, for example, the Moot, can then be connected with other anchor communities in Pretoria. And that network makes a lot of what we do possible, cooperation between those communities. So yeah, we look at Pretoria specifically as well, because there are 500,000 Afrikaners here. And here's a mind-blowing fact for a lot of you guys. I only learned it recently as well. To what city do you think the most Afrikaners in recent years immigrated or semi-migrated from somewhere within South Africa to there? Which city? Just think about that for a second. Bloemfontein, Pretoria, Cape Town, Kimberley, like Durban, all these cities. What city in recent years do you think the most Afrikaners immigrated to? I've seen the data. Solidariteit has done the research. I see. Let's get some answers in the chat before I give you the answer. Erika says Cape Town. Chris Wyatt says Pretoria. Rick Hearn says Pretoriasdorp. What do you say? What city have the most Afrikaners recently immigrated to? Baronat says Australia. All right. Drum roll, please. And the answer is Pretoria, not Cape Town. Your instincts would tell you Cape Town, but no. Our data shows that the majority of Afrikaners that moved to a city in the past few years have moved to Pretoria. Very fascinating stuff. So what we're seeing here is, as small towns collapse in the north of South Africa, those people are moving to Pretoria. So the Afrikaner population in Pretoria is skyrocketing in places like Centurion, in Pretoria itself. And that's very encouraging. That's why we are building so many cultural infrastructure here, and have so many neighborhood watches here. Chris White says, my brain hurts being correct again. Oh, Chris, you have all the inside info. You know South Africa very well. All right. So those are the sections, a little bit of a summary of what the documentary is about. Like I said, for those that are new here that didn't watch from the beginning, Selfbestuur is my new documentary that was released this morning on AfriForum's YouTube channel and also on AfriForum TV. And it's about state-proof solutions from the Solidariteit movement for the future. And it outlines them, gives you practical examples, and it's filled with many speakers explaining these ideas simply and effectively. And it's don't worry, it's in Afrikaans, but it has English subtitles, so you will be able to follow along if this. And I really encourage you to go see what we're all about here in the Solidariteit movement. That's the funny thing is people. That's the funny thing about the Solidariteit movement and AfriForum. We have a plan, but our plan's not a secret plan. It's out there. Like, it's not hard to find exactly. We spell out our plan. We make films about our plan. We write reports about our plan. We write books about our plan. The last thing the Solidariteit movement's plan is secret. It's absolutely not. It's out there, transparent. Like, here's what we plan to do, and here's how we're going to do it. And if you still are curious, if you haven't come across any of those sources, you go watch this documentary. It pretty much spells out our plan for the future, our state-proof plan for the future. All right. Petra Meibrug sê baie Transvaalers, Durbanite en Vrystaaters hier in Veldrif. Ja, Petra, interessant genoeg, Veldrif word in die dokumentêr genoem. Dis een van die voorbeelde wat ons genoem het. Nou nie vir daai rede, dis nie ons noem Martin van Staden noem dit sommer as 'n voorbeeld in een van sy voorbeelde. Maar ja, is interessant dat jy dit noem. Ek kan dit glo. Gus Stiliads. I hope that's correct. Says, hello, Ernst, Chris, Erika. All right. So, like I said, if you have any questions regarding the documentary, you can ask them in the chat. I'll get to them as quickly as possible. Bernard says, well done, guys. Glimmer of light in dark days to come. Excuse the pun. Yeah, well, I mean, Flip Base makes exactly the same pun in the documentary when he says Eskom is the darkest example of state failure. And it's true. You don't have to look far to see how the ANC government and the model of centralism is just rapidly collapsing and failing. And there has to be something an alternative that rises from that dust. And the alternative is spelled out here in the film. Chris Wyatt says, folks, please watch the film. It's very professional. I'm envious of the cinematic quality. You need to step aside, have a dinner engagement here in Linwood. Yeah, Chris is visiting here in South Africa. He's just here in Pretoria, and he attended the premiere last night. I hope you have an excellent evening, Chris. Enjoy. Walk well. Be smart says, I thought we were going to watch it now. No, unfortunately, this isn't going to be a director's commentary video. This is just a director's Q&A and a context video and discussion stream. You're going to have to go watch it for yourself if you want. Be smart, it's already premiered. So it's on AfriForum's YouTube channel. And there's a link in the description. So you can go watch it. Let's see. Mark Mayberg says, do you think the hungry masses will be interested in your plan? Mark, the frank thing is that nobody can save everyone. What we're talking about is, as the clouds of chaos start gathering, you're going to have to start building life rafts. The Titanic is sinking. You can't save South Africa, but you can save your community. You can save the things that you love in South Africa. There's a future for Southern Africa and for communities in Southern Africa, but the centralized project that started in 1910 called South Africa, that can't be saved. But your South African or Southern African communities and peoples, and cultures, that can be saved. Those can be saved. And that's what this documentary is for, a model for people to save their community. As Professor Koos Malan, that was on my channel a while back, the episode is called The Coming Deserts of Disorder. And that's what's going to happen. The deserts of disorder are coming. But within the deserts of disorder, there will be oases of order. And we, and the Solidariteit movement, at AfriForum, at AfriForum, all these organizations are building and contributing to those oases of order to create a future for people that want to stay in Africa and want a future here. And I think we're very successful already in that regard. Got now, Chris White. Cheers. Have a good one. All right. Ek moes die een of ander tyd dit sny. Ek kon nie dit vir altyd laat groei nie. Ek sien nie op universiteit nie. All right. Like I said, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon. I've still got a lot of stuff to do here tonight. I've also got a lot of questions. My phone's buzzing with people with questions about the documentary and feedback that I want to get to. So yeah, like I said, there's still some time left. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat or just comment. Erica says, yeah, you can save SA village by village. Well, you save your community and then you branch out from there. That's what your eye needs to be on the ball. All right. So something else that I wanted to mention. Dean Chauncey is here in the chat. Hello, Dean. American musician, Texan specifically, that writes songs about South Africa and the Boers. Go check out his YouTube channel as well. I think if you just type in Dean Chauncey, you'll get his music. Amazing, excellent stuff. And thank you for attending the premiere last night, Dean, the other American that attended. Thank you very much. I really appreciated that you were there. Baronat says, thanks, Adams. Well, thanks, Baronat, for tuning in. Sideline Opinions asks a very critical question, and I'll answer this question before I say goodbye. I'll end off with this, seeing as it's pretty much the crux. Why must we pay taxes if we do everything ourselves? It's a very important question, seeing as it's deeply unfair. I don't think you'll find anyone that will tell you, in South Africa, you will probably find people that tells you it's fair. Some ideologically possessed individuals, but the vast majority of decent common sense people, the sensible centrists, will tell you that it's daylight robbery. The government asks you to pay these taxes and they just use it to fill their own pockets. Or if they spend it on projects, it's completely mismanaged and thrown into a black hole of nothing. It's just wasted if it's not stolen. But, and here's the hard part, I'm not here to sell you a T-bone steak. I'm here to sell you vegetables, because you're only going to have to eat those vegetables. And the vegetables of the story is, we're on a sinking ship. Not the Titanic specifically, but let's use the Titanic as an example. The ship is sinking. The Titanic is sinking. What do you have? Two options. You can either join us to build life rafts and to work on solutions, how we're going to save as many people as possible, or you can go sit in the corner, fold your arms, and say, this is not fair. I paid a lot of money for my ticket on the Titanic, and I paid for a safe trip. It's not fair that the ship is going down. Those are your two options. As Flabay says, the only risk bigger than trying what we are trying or trying to find a solution is not doing anything. That's the only risk bigger than trying and failing, is not trying at all. And this is what we're doing with this plan. Titanic is sinking. It's deeply unfair. Absolutely. But just go a little bit back in history, and the Afrikaners will know this very well. Let's just use our history as an example. The French Huguenots came to South Africa to flee religious persecution in Europe. That's not fair. That's deeply unfair that you have to flee hundreds of years ago. You have to flee to a foreign continent on the other side of the world just to practice your religion and not be persecuted for it. That's not fair. But they did it. They met the challenges of their time, the unfairness of their time, and they found a solution, and it worked. The Voortrekkers that had to trek into the interior when the British took over the Cape Colony in the early 1800s and started suppressing their culture and pretty much tried to anglicize them. They moved into the interior. They left their farms and their prosperity and the good schools and infrastructure and business opportunities and money and jobs that come with annexation and by the British. They left all of that behind and rather trekked into the interior, took their families with them, were not for increased safety or prosperity or opportunities, more danger, less opportunities, less prosperity, but to keep their culture alive and preserve it. That's not fair. That's not fair that they had to that the English came and annexed the Cape. That's not fair. But the Voortrekkers found a way, even though it was deeply unfair what happened. Anglo-Boer War. British Empire takes over South Africa to get gold and diamonds in a strategic position. The Boer republics are attacked and eventually destroyed. Boer women and children are put into concentration camps. Boers have to resort to guerrilla warfare. Their farms are destroyed and burned down. That's not fair. That's deeply, deeply unfair. But did the Boers go and sit, cross their arms, and say, this is not fair? It's not fair that the British Empire is invading our it's colonizing us, basically, and invading our republics. That's not fair. But they functioned within those circumstances. Being colonized by the British Empire is not fair. Having your colonies destroyed is not fair. Having your women and children put into concentration camps is not fair. But they found a way, and they are still Afrikaners here today because of their brave sacrifices. That's the inspiration and perspective we need to take from the past. Is the fact that our past is just one unfair scenario that goes from one unfair scenario to the next. There hasn't been a fair time in the Afrikaners' history or South Africa. And that's the thing. We have our own unfair circumstances. And we again have only the one question. That one question of, will we, let me see here. Will we rise to the task of our age? I mean, that's what Alexander Solzhenitsyn said. Let me just get I've got the quote in Afrikaans now because I had to translate it for the documentary. But I just wanted to, so Alexander Solzhenitsyn said there's but one choice that every generation faces, and that is to rise to the task of the age. And may I add, under very unfair circumstances every time. We have our own unique unfair circumstances, and we have the task of our age. And we only have that one choice once again. Are we going to hoist the white flag, or are we going to rise to the task of the age? Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Go watch my documentary. There's a link in the description. It has English subtitles, and I hope that you enjoy it, and leave your feedback in the comments. Leave a like as well. I really appreciate it, and thank you for tuning in here today. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your questions as well, and all your very nice comments from those that have watched it already. Thank you to everyone that shared it. That's the other thing. Please, if you enjoy the documentary and find it insightful, share it all across social media with your friends and family to show them what the Solidariteit movement is doing, what AfriForum is doing, and how we're pioneering examples of state-proof solutions for the future here in South Africa. I hope you have an excellent evening. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you again next week. And if you are new to this channel, subscribe for more content like this, and for more content from the southern tip of Africa. All right, and state-proof solutions. Cheers, guys. Have a good one, and God bless.